My boyfriend looked at me and said, "I need to talk to you." He said it the moment he walked through the apartment door after his boys' night. At first, I thought it was something small, maybe work stress, maybe an argument with one of his coworkers. Maybe he had drunk too much and needed to vent about something stupid that had happened at a bar. 3 years together teaches you how to read someone's moods. But what I saw on Daniel's face that night wasn't irritation. It wasn't stress. It looked like guilt. The kind of guilt people carry when they are about to confess something that can't be taken back. I muted the TV and sat up straighter on the couch. "Yeah," I said, "of course. What's going on?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stood there in the doorway between the kitchen and the living room, like he wasn't sure if he should come closer or stay exactly where he was. And that was when I noticed his hand. There was a ring on it, a diamond ring. Not huge, but unmistakable. For a second, my brain simply refused to process what I was seeing. Then my stomach dropped so violently I thought I might be sick. I pointed at his hand. "What is that?" Daniel glanced down at the ring like he had forgotten it was there. Then he exhaled slowly and walked into the living room. He sat down on the far end of the couch. Not next to me. As far away as possible while still technically sharing the same piece of furniture. "I'm engaged," he said. Just like that. 2 words. 3 years of my life collapsed in 2 words. For several seconds I didn't move. Didn't speak. Didn't breathe. "You're what?" I finally asked. "I'm engaged," he repeated quietly. "To Vanessa." Vanessa? The name floated through my mind like something half-remembered. A coworker. He had mentioned her occasionally over the past year. Finance department. Smart. Funny. The kind of name that popped up in casual stories about work lunches or office meetings. Never important. Never threatening. Just background noise in the story of our life together. Until now. "How long?" I asked. My voice sounded strangely calm. Like I was asking about the weather. Daniel rubbed his hands together nervously. "For a few months." "A few months." I repeated those words silently. "A few months." While we were still living together. While we were still sleeping in the same bed. While I was still paying 2/3 of the rent because Daniel said he wanted to save money for our future. While I was secretly saving money too. $8,000. 18 months of quietly setting aside part of every paycheck. All so I could surprise him someday with something meaningful. Something that said I was ready to build a life together. And now he was sitting across from me, wearing someone else's engagement ring. "So," I said slowly, "you've been cheating on me for months. And now you're engaged to her." The words came out flat, emotionless. Shock has a strange way of numbing everything. Daniel finally looked up at me. There was something in his eyes. Not quite regret. Something closer to defensiveness. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this," he said. "It just happened." I laughed. The sound surprised both of us. It didn't sound like my laugh. It sounded bitter, sharp. "Things don't just happen for 4 months, Daniel." He ran a hand through his hair. "You wouldn't understand." That sentence landed like a slap. "Try me." He leaned forward slightly. "Vanessa has her life together, Olivia," he said. "She's stable. She knows what she wants. She makes good money. She's ready for the next step." I stared at him. "I make good money," I said quietly. "And we've talked about marriage, about kids, about a future." "You talked about it," he corrected. "You never actually did anything." That one hurt. More than the engagement. More than the cheating. Because somewhere deep down, a small part of me knew what he meant. I had been waiting. Waiting for the right moment. The perfect timing. Next month, we were supposed to go on an anniversary trip to the coast. A weekend we had been planning for 6 months. I had already looked up small venues near the beach. I had imagined the moment 100 different ways. But I hadn't said anything yet. "You were planning to leave me eventually anyway," Daniel said. His voice sounded almost accusing now. "So I moved first." I blinked at him. "That's your explanation?" He didn't respond. Instead, he looked down at the ring again. The silence stretched between us. Then I asked the question I already knew the answer to. "Does Vanessa know about me?" Daniel hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything. "She knows I was seeing someone when we met," he said carefully. "But she thinks we broke up 3 months ago." For a moment, I simply stared at him. Then I laughed again. Louder this time. "So you proposed to her while she believed you were single." "She believes we're starting fresh," he said. "Building something real." "And what exactly do you call the last 3 years of my life?" I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he stood up suddenly and grabbed his jacket from the chair near the door. "I'm staying at her place tonight," he said. "I'll come back tomorrow for my stuff." Just like that. 3 years reduced to logistics. He walked to the door. My brain was still struggling to catch up with reality. "Daniel!" He paused with his hand on the doorknob. "What? Does she know you're still on the lease here until October?" He frowned. "I'll figure it out." Then he opened the door and left. The apartment became silent. So quiet it felt unreal. I sat on that couch for hours, staring at nothing, replaying the last 4 months in my head. The late nights, the extra work meetings, the sudden boys' nights that started happening twice a week. All the tiny things I had ignored. At 4 in the morning, I was still sitting there, still awake, still trying to understand how my life had split in half in a single conversation. Then something clicked in my mind. A small detail I had almost forgotten. About 6 months earlier, Vanessa had added me on LinkedIn. Daniel had suggested I accept the request. She's a great connection in the industry, he'd said. I grabbed my phone, opened the app, and pulled up her profile, her company, her position, her contact information, including the professional email format used by her company. It took me less than 30 seconds to find her work email. I stared at the screen for a long time, my fingers hovering above the keyboard. I wasn't angry anymore. Not exactly. What I felt was something colder, clearer, because if Vanessa believed Daniel had been single, then she deserved to know the truth. And for the first time since Daniel walked out that door, I finally knew exactly what I was going to do. I did not send the email right away. That is the part people always imagine wrong when they hear a story like mine. They picture rage, impulsiveness, a woman crying on her couch at 4 in the morning, firing off something reckless and dramatic because her boyfriend shattered her life and she wanted immediate revenge. But that was not what happened. I sat there with Vanessa's profile open on my phone and the draft of a blank message on my laptop. And for the first time in hours, I forced myself to breathe slowly. In, out, again. If I was going to do this, I was not going to sound jealous. I was not going to sound unstable. And I was definitely not going to give Daniel the satisfaction of calling me bitter. I wanted the truth to stand on its own. Nothing more, nothing less. By the time sunlight started slipping through the blinds, I had moved from the couch to the kitchen table. The apartment looked exactly the same as it had the night before, but everything in it felt altered somehow. The half-finished glass of water Daniel had left on the counter, the hoodie he had draped over the dining chair 2 days earlier, the coffee mug in the sink with the chip on the handle, the one I kept meaning to throw out, but never did, because it was his favorite. All of it looked like evidence now, not of love, of carelessness, of how easily one person can live in two worlds at once if the other person keeps choosing trust over suspicion. Around 8 in the morning, I opened the Notes app on my phone and started listing facts. Not feelings. Facts. 3 years together. Still living together until yesterday. Shared apartment. Shared lease through October. He told me about the engagement Friday night. Vanessa believes he has been single for 3 months. I stared at the list for a long time, then opened my laptop again and began writing. The first version sounded too emotional. The second sounded too stiff. The third sounded like I was trying too hard not to sound hurt, which somehow made it even more obvious that I was. By noon, I had rewritten the message 6 times. At some point, I made coffee and forgot to drink it. At some point, I realized I was still wearing the same oversized sweatshirt from the night before. At some point, my phone lit up with one text from Daniel. I'll be there tomorrow morning with a couple friends to pick up my stuff. No apology. No explanation. No, are you okay? Just logistics. I looked at the message until the screen went dark. Then I placed the phone face down on the table and went back to the email. By 2 in the afternoon, it was finished. It read, "Hi, Vanessa. My name is Olivia Bennett. I believe you recently became engaged to Daniel Carter. I am reaching out because I think there has been a serious misunderstanding about his current situation. Daniel and I have been in a relationship for the last 3 years, and until yesterday we were still living together at our apartment. He told me about your engagement on Friday night, which was the first I had heard about the two of you being in a relationship. I'm not writing to create drama or conflict. I simply believe you deserve to have the full truth before making a major life decision. If you would like to talk or ask questions, I'm available." I read it twice, then a third time. I removed one sentence that sounded too sharp, added one line to make it clearer that I was not trying to manipulate her. Then I hit send. Saturday, 2:47 p.m. The second it left my outbox, a strange calm settled over me. Not relief exactly. More like certainty. I had done the only thing I could still live with. Whatever happened next was no longer mine to control. Daniel came by the next morning. Sunday, just after 10. He did not come alone. 2 of his friends were with him, Marcus and Tyler. Both guys I had shared drinks and birthday dinners with more times than I could count. Men who had sat in our living room, eaten food I cooked, laughed at inside jokes, and acted like they respected our relationship. Neither of them would meet my eyes. I opened the door and stepped aside without saying a word. Daniel brushed past me carrying 2 empty duffel bags and a box of trash bags. He looked tired, but not destroyed. Tense, maybe. Irritated, like this whole thing had become more inconvenient than he expected. Marcus gave me a quick nod. Tyler muttered, "Hey." That was it. No one said I'm sorry. No one said this is messed up. No one said anything honest at all. Daniel went straight to the bedroom and started pulling clothes from drawers. Hangers scraped across the closet rod. Bathroom cabinet doors opened and shut. The zipper of a duffel bag rasped through the apartment in short, violent bursts. I stood near the kitchen counter with my arms folded, watching the man I had loved for 3 years reduce himself to laundry piles and electronics cords. He took his watch charger, his laptop, his expensive headphones, a framed photo from a baseball game we went to last spring. He left behind the ceramic bowl my mother gave us when we moved in, the air fryer I bought him for his birthday, and the navy blanket we picked out together one rainy Sunday because he said it made the apartment feel more like home. Funny what people take when they're ending one life to start another. Funny what they leave behind. At one point, he walked into the kitchen to grab a bottle of water from the refrigerator, like he still lived there. That almost made me laugh. Instead, I said, "Where are you staying?" He twisted the cap off the bottle. "With Vanessa. Matter of fact." Like that sentence alone should explain everything. "You're moving in together already?" He shrugged. "It makes sense." I looked at him for a few seconds. Then I asked, very quietly, "Does she know you're still on the lease here until October?" For the first time since he arrived, his expression shifted, only slightly. But enough. Marcus and Tyler both went very still behind him. "I said I'll figure it out," Daniel snapped. "That wasn't my question." His jaw tightened. "You don't need to worry about it." I almost told him I wasn't worried. I almost told him that worry is what you feel when something still matters. What I felt now was closer to observation. Like I was finally watching him clearly instead of through the soft blur of love. But I did not say that. I just nodded once and stepped aside. An hour later, they were gone. The apartment felt even emptier than it had the night before. Not because Daniel had taken that much. Because now the performance was complete. There was no illusion left to preserve. I spent the rest of Sunday cleaning. Not because I needed the apartment spotless, but because I could not bear to sit still. I stripped the bed, collected his forgotten receipts from the dresser, threw away an old takeout menu he always insisted on keeping. I found one of his socks under the couch and stood there holding it for a full 10 seconds, overwhelmed by the absurd intimacy of small things. A sock. That was what 3 years had become. A sock under a couch and a lease neither of us had figured out how to break. At 9:23 Monday morning, my phone rang from an unknown number. For 1 second, I considered ignoring it. Then I answered. "Hello?" A woman's voice said, "Is this Olivia?" "Yes." A short pause. "This is Vanessa." I sat down immediately. There was something in the way she said it that told me 2 things at once. First, Daniel had already talked to her. Second, whatever Daniel had said was a lie. "Thank you for calling," I said carefully. "That depends," she replied. Her voice was cold, controlled, but underneath it I could hear accusation already forming. "Daniel told me you might try to contact me," Vanessa said. "He said you didn't take the breakup well, that you've been having trouble accepting that the relationship ended." For one brief moment, I closed my eyes. Of course. Of course Daniel had moved first. Of course he had tried to lay the groundwork before the truth reached her. "When exactly?" I asked quietly. "Did he tell you we broke up?" Silence. Then Vanessa said, "About 3 months ago." I let the silence sit there for half a second. Not long enough to feel theatrical. Just long enough for the weight of reality to enter the conversation. "We were still living together until yesterday," I said. Nothing on the other end. I kept going. "We were together for 3 years. He told me about the engagement Friday night. That was the first time I learned you existed in that way." Vanessa still did not speak. So I said the one thing I knew she could verify instantly. "Check Daniel's Instagram if you don't believe me. There's a photo from 2 weeks ago at dinner. I'm in it. He's wearing the gray jacket you probably know." Her breathing changed, very slightly, but I heard it. Then she asked, much quieter now, "You're saying he moved out yesterday?" "Yes." Another silence. She had gone from suspicious to unsettled in under a minute. I could almost hear the version of reality Daniel built for her beginning to crack. Finally, Vanessa said, "I'm going to call you back." Then she hung up. I stayed seated at the edge of the couch, still holding the phone. My pulse was racing now. Not because I was scared, because I knew that tone. It was the tone of someone replaying every conversation they had ever trusted. The tone of a person standing at the threshold of a truth they did not want, but could no longer avoid. I went to work that day and accomplished absolutely nothing. I answered emails I could not remember writing. Read the same spreadsheet 3 times. My manager stopped by my desk just before lunch and asked if I was feeling all right. I told her I had a headache. That part, at least, was true. At 2:04 p.m., my phone began vibrating across my desk so hard it nearly slid into my coffee. "Daniel." Then again, and again. Then messages. "How could you do this? What is wrong with you? Why would you contact her? You're ruining everything. I stared at the texts as they piled up. 12 messages in 10 minutes. Every single one of them saying the same thing in different words. That I had destroyed his life. That I had crossed a line. That I was vindictive. I read them all once. Then I replied with a single sentence. I told her the truth, that's all. After that, I muted his number. And for the first time since Friday night, I felt something close to power return. Not because I had hurt him, because I had stopped protecting him. Tuesday evening, just after 6:15, Vanessa called back. The second I heard her voice, I knew everything had changed. She sounded tired, angry, and no longer angry at me. I need to know everything, she said. The whole timeline, don't leave anything out. And sitting there with the fading light from my apartment window stretching across the floor, I realized the story was no longer just about heartbreak. It was about to become something else. Because now there were two of us, and both of us had been lied to. Vanessa did not waste time with small talk. The moment I answered the phone Tuesday evening, she said one sentence that told me everything had changed. I need to know everything. Her voice sounded different now. Not defensive. Not skeptical. Just tired. The whole timeline, she continued. From the beginning. Don't leave anything out. I leaned back against the couch and stared at the ceiling for a moment before answering. Okay, I said quietly. And then I started talking. I told her about 3 years ago. About the rooftop bar where Daniel and I met through mutual friends on a warm summer night when everything felt easy and exciting. I told her how Daniel had been funny and confident, how we had stayed out until 2 a.m. talking about everything from travel dreams to terrible childhood haircuts. I told her how quickly the relationship had grown after that. Weekend trips, inside jokes, Sunday mornings making pancakes in the kitchen, the kind of relationship that feels steady rather than dramatic. The kind you slowly start building your future around without realizing it. We moved in together after about a year, I said. The same apartment we've been living in until this week. Vanessa didn't interrupt. I could hear faint background noise on her end, like traffic passing somewhere nearby. Did he ever talk about me? I asked after a moment. Yes, she said. The answer surprised me. What did he say? That his last relationship ended badly, Vanessa replied slowly. That you two broke up about 6 months before we met. I let out a quiet breath. 6 months, I repeated. Yeah. So, according to Daniel, I said, I was already gone before you even entered the picture. That's what he told me. I rubbed my forehead. The scale of the lie was starting to become clearer. Daniel and I were still together 4 months ago, I said. Still living together. Still planning our anniversary trip next month. There was a pause. Then Vanessa asked quietly, You were planning a trip together? Yes. A beach trip, I said. We booked it 6 months ago. Silence filled the line again. Finally, Vanessa exhaled slowly. I spent $12,000 on that ring, she said. The number caught me off guard. 12? Yeah, she said. Her voice sounded flat now. Beach proposal, sunset, photographer hiding in the dunes. The image formed instantly in my mind. Carefully planned. Romantic. The kind of moment people imagine when they think about starting a life with someone. I thought we were building something real, Vanessa said quietly. I didn't know what to say to that. Because the worst part wasn't just that Daniel had lied. It was that he had done it so thoroughly. 2 relationships, 2 futures, both carefully customized depending on who he was talking to. What did he tell you about his life? I asked. Vanessa exhaled slowly. That he wanted to settle down, she said. That he was tired of casual relationships. That he wanted stability. I almost laughed. Because the version of Daniel she was describing sounded strangely different from the one I knew. He told me he wanted to focus on his career, I said. He said kids might happen someday, but he wasn't in a rush. Vanessa was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. He told me he wanted 3 kids. 3? Maybe 4, she added. And that he dreamed about building a big family. I leaned forward slowly. You're serious? Completely. We both went silent. 2 strangers sitting in separate apartments, slowly realizing we had not just dated the same man. We had dated 2 different versions of him. He told me he loved cooking, Vanessa said suddenly. What? He said he enjoyed making elaborate dinners for family gatherings. I blinked. He hates cooking, I said. That man once burned microwave popcorn. Vanessa let out a stunned laugh. You're kidding. I wish. The realization settled between us. Daniel hadn't just lied. He had created different versions of himself depending on who he was speaking to. Different dreams, different ambitions, different values, tailored perfectly to what each of us wanted to hear. Where are you right now? I asked. In my car. Your car? Yes. She paused. I told Daniel I needed some space to think. The words hung in the air. Daniel, sitting somewhere completely unaware that the truth was unraveling piece by piece. What are you going to do? I asked. I don't know yet, Vanessa admitted. Her voice cracked slightly. I introduced him to my parents last month. That sentence hit harder than I expected. Parents, families, future plans, all of it built on a lie. I'm really sorry, I said quietly. And I meant it. Vanessa took a slow breath. This isn't your fault. I still feel like I detonated a bomb in your life. You didn't detonate it, she replied. Daniel did. A long silence followed. Finally, she said something else. There's one more thing. What? I asked Daniel earlier today why his Instagram still had pictures of you. My stomach tightened. What did he say? He said you were obsessive. I laughed out loud. A short, incredulous sound. He said you refused to delete the photos, Vanessa continued. That you were still trying to hold on to the relationship. The absurdity almost made me dizzy. That's impressive, I said. What? The confidence it takes to lie that aggressively. Vanessa let out a tired laugh. I'm going to confront him tonight. My heart started beating faster. You sure about that? No, she said. But I can't sit here pretending I didn't just learn my entire engagement might be built on a lie. That's fair. Another pause. Then Vanessa said quietly, Thank you for telling me. You're welcome. I mean it, she said. You didn't have to do that. I would want someone to tell me. Well, you did. We sat in silence for a moment longer. Then she said, I'll let you know what happens. And she hung up. I placed my phone on the table and stared at it for a long time. Somewhere across the city, Daniel was sitting comfortably inside a life he believed was secure. He probably thought the situation had already been handled, that his old relationship was finished. But what he didn't know was that the two versions of his life had just collided. And by the time the night was over, everything built on those lies would begin to fall apart. I did not sleep much that night. Every few minutes, I found myself glancing at my phone, waiting. Not because I wanted drama, but because I knew Daniel's carefully balanced world was about to fracture. By midnight, nothing had happened. Eventually, exhaustion pulled me into shallow sleep on the couch. When my alarm went off the next morning, I had 3 missed calls. 2 from Daniel, 1 from Vanessa. I called her back immediately. She answered on the first ring. Hey, she said. Her voice sounded like she hadn't slept either. What happened? I asked. There was a long pause. Then Vanessa said something that made my chest tighten. I ended it. With Daniel? Yes. I leaned back against the couch. Was it bad? You could say that. She exhaled slowly. When I got back to my apartment last night, Daniel was sitting on the couch watching TV like nothing was wrong. I could picture it easily. Daniel always had that ability to act calm when things were falling apart. He asked if I felt better, Vanessa continued, said he figured I just needed space. And? I asked him one question. What? Vanessa's voice turned sharp. I asked him if he had been living with you 3 days ago. My stomach tightened. And what did he say? At first he tried to laugh it off, she said. He said you were exaggerating, that you were upset about the breakup and trying to cause problems. That sounded exactly like Daniel. But I told him I had spoken to you, Vanessa continued. And then? Silence for a moment. Then everything changed. I could hear the moment in her voice. The moment Daniel realized the lie had nowhere left to go. He tried to pivot, she said. Pivot? Started saying your relationship had been complicated, that it wasn't serious anymore, that you two were basically roommates. I rubbed my forehead. That's creative. Yeah. Vanessa let out a humorless laugh. But when I asked about the lease, the pictures, the timeline, she stopped speaking. What happened? I asked. He couldn't keep the story straight anymore. The words came out flat. Every answer contradicted the last one. That was the problem with complicated lies. Eventually, they collapse under their own weight. I told him to leave, she said. Just like that? Just like that. Another pause. He tried to argue, she added. Of course he did. He said I was overreacting. I almost laughed. Overreacting to discovering your fiancé has been living with someone else. Exactly. What finally ended it? I asked. Vanessa's voice grew quieter. I showed him your email. My heart skipped. He read it? Yes. And? He went completely silent. I could picture Daniel's expression perfectly. The tight jaw, the calculating eyes, searching for some way to regain control. But there wasn't one, she said. I had already verified everything. So he left? Yes. Another long pause followed. Where did he go? I asked. I have no idea. Vanessa sighed. But the engagement is over. I nodded slowly, even though she couldn't see me. I'm sorry. I know. She hesitated. But honestly, I'm more angry than sad right now. That makes sense. I introduced him to my family, she said quietly. My parents were already talking about wedding dates. The ripple effect of Daniel's deception felt larger every time we talked about it. Friends, parents, future plans, entire lives built around something that had never really existed. You didn't deserve that, I said. Neither did you. 3 weeks later, life had mostly settled. Daniel stopped calling. The last thing I heard was that he moved out of the city for a while to stay with relatives. Breaking the lease early cost $2,100. Daniel didn't have the money. His parents had to help cover it. The apartment felt different without him. Not sad, peaceful. I started sleeping better, going to the gym again, seeing friends I had drifted away from. As for the $8,000 I had been saving for a ring, I decided to do something unexpected with it. For months, that money had represented a future with Daniel. Now it represented something else. Freedom. So I booked a flight. Japan. A trip I had been dreaming about for years, but always postponed. The night before my departure, I sat in the quiet apartment with a cup of tea and looked around the living room. Everything felt lighter somehow. My phone buzzed. A message from Vanessa. Vanessa, safe travels tomorrow. Send pictures from Japan. I smiled. Me, I will. A few minutes later, another message appeared. An unfamiliar number. I opened it. It was Daniel. Just one message. Daniel, if you're back in town for the holidays, maybe we could talk. I stared at the screen for a moment. Then I typed a simple reply. Me, I'll be in Japan. His response came 30 seconds later. Daniel, that sounds amazing. I'm happy for you. And that was the last message he ever sent me. The next morning, I boarded a plane with a one-way ticket across the world. And somewhere above the clouds, as the city disappeared beneath the horizon, I realized something surprising. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. Sometimes losing someone doesn't ruin your life. Sometimes it gives you the chance to start a better one.